And I also like is how he meets Agent Simmons at that access panel in the middle of the night, and he remarks, I could ask you the same question, when she asks what he's doing in front of such a panel in the middle of the night, but looking back in hindsight, what was he doing there? And why was he being so overly nice while actually screwing everybody over? Why was he even somewhat secretive towards Agent Hand? It all makes perfect sense in hindsight. And it is also interesting how Ward indeed just wanted Fitz to get out of there, and how, he a lot of people thought that he was, this boring close-off character at first, that just needed to relax, and play too much by the rules because of his very, difficult youth. But what's interesting is that it indeed seemed like a cliche backstory, and he seemed like a rather obvious, simple character at first, but that was all planned out from the beginning. I love how they make fun of that in the episode where they revealed he was a Hydra sleeper agent by Sky remarking that he should really look up the word boring in a dictionary. And indeed, they really pulled out the carpet from underneath. They started off with a lot of cliches, but that was in fact to play with your expectations, and that's generally what you do. But in a show you can't do that as quickly as in a movie. So I also think that that's the problem, that a lot of people who complain about the early episodes did that without having seen the later episodes. And I personally think that you need to see seasons as a whole, because that's what this show is about. It's about a greater story, and that might sacrifice the individual parts a little bit. But hey, a lot of people complain about Star Trek Voyager for just being exciting fun every episode without building to a greater story, and this tries to do just that. And again, it was just the first season. Hey, at least the season only had 22 episodes, and people considered at least the last 7 or 8 of those to be excellent. And I mean, even Lady Sid makes 2 cameos, and we have Kree cameos. So I really don't see what's the big deal, especially when they, even before The Winter Soldier aired, referenced things like the Tri-Skelly, and the continuity is just incredibly strong, and that just really satisfied me. And I especially think what's also interesting is how Sitwell, again, also acts very mysterious when Coulson tries to ask him whether he can speak Nick Fury, and that also build up the mysterious dealings that Nick Fury is involved with. And I also think what's incredibly strong is and that there were even another couple of hints that Ward was a Hydra sleeper agent, even in the first episode, where he tries to kill Mike Peterson, even though Coulson wants to save him, which is conveniently also what the Centipede Project wants to do, so that he won't expose them. That again, I thought was great foreshadowing. And another interesting hint that Ward was in fact a Hydra sleeper agent was that he never really kills anyone that works for the Centipede Project. When they broke into Quinn's mansion, he only used sedation weapons, and he never took the shot when they kidnapped Coulson. He in fact only kills S.H.I.E.L.D. agents even prior to him turning out to be a Hydra sleeper agent. When they broke into Nick Fury's secret base, he and Garrett were the ones who really killed S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, and when Coulson convinces them during the Hydra takeover that they should only use sedative weapons, he still uses a knife and pieces of glass to stab S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, and uses one as a shield who gets shot, even though they were innocent S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. But in fact, he also never gets mortally attacked by anyone working for the Centipede Project. They shot at him from the helicopter, but they only mildly injured him, even though if you look at what happened to Mike Peterson, they were clearly willing to use lethal force. He has a sedation grenade thrown at him, so even though Sky got shot, and that was also excellent that they mentioned that the Clairvoyant would show up right after, and he indeed did in the form of Garrett. And it's also excellent that they mentioned right from the beginning that Garrett was Ward's former SO, which made his betrayal feel even more natural. And it's also interesting that you now have scenes where Sitwell and Garrett are in the same scene, while both would turn out to be Hydra agents. And I think that was also very interesting how they mentioned that in the episode where Hydra rose up against S.H.I.E.L.D., where Garrett says to the agents that he knew that Agent Sitwell was in charge of filling their ranks, and there we see even more the importance of Sitwell's betrayal, which was also hinted at in Captain America the Winter Soldier. I again think that it's stuff like this which made it so relevant to the Winter Soldier, and I just like it for its story, its mystery, its intrigue, and I also thought the characters were rather strong. I think Coulson is especially made interesting because in the beginning he's kind of, a goody two-shoes. He's become more enlightened. He wants to always spare the innocent, but there are moments where he can't really do that, and there are also moments where he really starts to doubt the system because he doesn't know how they resurrected him, and you can see it really eats at him, and even that was effectively hinted at from the beginning. That May knew about it was hinted at from the beginning, as well as that Maria Hill knew about it, and with him repeatedly saying it's a magical place, even that was very effective. And also Ward with his very violent lethal abilities, I also thought that made him kind of interesting from the beginning, just how harsh he was during fights and how much he used lethal force. That automatically automatically made him rather intriguing, because you really just wondered what kind of backstory he had. And it's also interesting how we only see glimpses of the backstory with his brother, which built more and more mystery. And also thought it was interesting how it turned out he wasn't just abused, but he was forced to participate in abuse, which is also a very strong form of mental abuse, and explains how he ended up becoming so violent. And the moment we found out that Garrett was a traitor and that he was the one who educated the mentally scarred Ward, it makes perfect sense he would turn out to be a traitor as well. And it's also interesting how he and May can both relate over their more darker backstories, but at the same time makes sense that therefore he in reality wouldn't have much feelings for her, because she's very strong and has a very hard outer shell, and she doesn't really appreciate the soft and vulnerable side of him, which is really what he was all along. You know, he was an abused kid and he just learned to be strong, and he had to basically reject his own weaknesses. So it also makes really a lot of sense that he developed such a weird obsession with Sky, because she's one of the few people who really saw the good in him, and he wanted to see that in himself, but he in the end remained loyal to Garrett, and because of this she came to see him as pure evil, even though what she saw in him, to a certain degree, the reason he could blend in with the team was because he did slowly develop to care about them, but it was always in a manipulative way. And indeed, the part where he bonds with Fitz over their successful mission, you know, it all seems a little bit obvious and cheesy, but again, that works very well in retrospect. But you can see that to a certain degree he indeed did care about them. So I think that makes it even stronger. You sometimes wonder when he, for example, laments having shot the old paralyzed man, whether he really did regret having to do that. You wonder just how much he enjoys working for Hydra, and just how much he really has a good side within him. And I also think it's interesting to see the inner workings of S.H.I.E.L.D. bureaucracy, where you see how Garrett and Ward both dislike Agent Hand for a more heavy-handed approach, and also think it's interesting how Garrett is basically very always nice and overly jokey towards everyone in the team, except for towards Sitwell, who he ironically makes fun of, and that Sitwell always criticizes Coulson for being unorthodox, but doesn't do anything like that with Coulson, and how Sitwell usually challenges crazy plans, but when they're searching for the clairvoyant, you can see he just looks for clarification on Garrett's part, that once again build up his being a traitor twist perfectly, and it made sense because he always had this very odd behavior about it, which turned out to be similar to Senator Stern, who also turned out to be a traitor in The Winter Soldier. The Winter Soldier had a lot of twists that felt naturally, but because this ties into that so well, I really don't care that the build-up takes just a bit. I really don't see the problem with that. The payoff was just fantastic. And now that people have seen the second season and most have loved it, I especially don't see what's the big deal. I also think it's very interesting how it followed up on The Winter Soldier, that we see Coulson becoming a director, and I also like how much collateral damage there is during the whole conflict with Hydra, and how they also show the political aspects of S.H.I.E.L.D. now being prosecuted, how the show really also is allowed to show the details that the movies cannot really do, and how it can also develop the supporting characters like Lady Syd. I especially like how we don't really find out who the one was that Lorelei took over, but it's a possibility that it was in fact Thor, hinting at the romance between them that we also saw in For the Dark World. So all of that I once again think is incredibly strong, and that they mentioned that, you know, Anthony Hopkins, he lives, because a lot of people questioned whether he'd actually been killed by Loki for the Dark World, and now we know he's still in charge, which raises even more interesting questions of just exactly what Loki is doing in Asgard, which we will obviously find out in 4-3, so this got me even more hyped for that. This made the tease with Loki at the end of For the Dark World feel less forced, so even that I thought was very strong. And a lot of people complained about the episode with the Berserker staff, that technically it didn't need to be a tie-in with For the Dark World, and I guess that's true, but it's still just nice to see how this follows up on the effects of the movies, like with the Chitauri technology, especially as the Chitauri technology would come back in the Avengers Age of Ultron, and how the Berserker staff would turn out to be relevant in later episodes. And it's also interesting to see how May could more successfully use it, as she had more control over emotions. And also even May starting off being rather closed off and one-dimensional turned out to build up to her having a very exceptional backstory, and even a secret link to Nick Fury, which was already teased at in earlier episodes, so even that was incredibly effective. And to see all of these characters start off rather typically and develop and gradually gain more and more dimensions, I just think was fantastic. And if you look at the end of the second season, they're barely the same people. The characters have a lot of development, but that requires for them to start it in a somewhat more ordinary place, and I don't see what's the problem with that. And I especially think it's interesting because Sky's backstory with her not knowing her parents is very interesting, and from the beginning that also ties into an alien origin, so I thought that was very effective. Mike Peterson was from the beginning very much an everyman, while at the same time having enhanced abilities, and I thought he was also made very tragic. His relationship with his son wasn't too corny, and I thought that worked very well. And Reyna, I always thought she was fantastic, and most fans agreed, because she has this very nice and sweet side to her that actually seems genuine. She genuinely thought Coulson was a good person, and she admires good people, but at the same time being very cold-hearted and leaving people to die. She commits medical experiments, but we find out that she had also been experimented upon herself by Garrett, that she had also been inside the machine, and that obviously might explain why she's so mentally unstable, but she's a real psychopath while at the same time being very sympathetic. And also, Ward turned out to be so tragic that he'd really been conditioned, because what's interesting is that the Winter Soldier was obviously brainwashed, just literally, but Ward had been brainwashed in a very flexible, subtle way, because Garrett, even with him, like we later on we constantly hear, compliance will be rewarded, but Garrett just says that isn't a weakness, is it? And to see him attempt to kill Fitz and Simmons by dropping them in the ocean, but how much it hurt him to do that was incredibly tragic. And that's also why his more mysterious backstory was so effective from the beginning, and why it also makes sense that he never saw his family again. So once again, I just think that works very well. And also, I think that Ward, therefore turning out to be a Hydra agent, was an incredibly well built up twist, and it wasn't nearly as much of a he's a double triple agent kind of thing as we had with Snape. They really made him a bad guy. Most fans thought they wouldn't have the balls to go down that route, but they did. They made one of the main characters a traitor who had been manipulating for them from the beginning, and who did care about them, but who did betray them. No shapeshifters, no prosthetic vills, no actual Ward being captured, no being controlled secretly. No, he had just been emotionally brainwashed to serve Hydra, but the fact that he did care about them a little, while not having a redemption right from the beginning, that made him incredibly interesting, I think. And most fans would agree that later on also May turned out to be incredibly interesting, that we see a relationship with her mother, that we see how Coulson feels betrayed about her, but in the end he still appreciates her, that we see more of her relationship with Nick Fury in the final episode, and that we see her take revenge on Ward. I think all of that was fantastic. And a lot of people have also complained about Fitz and Simmons, that, in the beginning they were just kind of comedic side characters, and that's true, but people have even complained about some of the movies, that the side characters feel underdeveloped, especially 4, and this is a TV show, and then it's even more difficult to have excellent characters all around because of the writing constraints that TV shows have. A lot of the time people complain some characters in TV shows are weak, even with the greatest shows that have existed. People thought they were at least weak in the beginning, but again, they build up to something incredibly tragic because they really build up to a romance, but it was revealed at the worst moment. He gets brain damage, they nearly die, they even have a very deep conversation about the meaning of death, and we also see just how different their perspectives are on Ward's betrayal. We see how Fitz really trusts in his good side, how at the same time he actually tries to kill Garrett. Fitz turns out to also have some unique sides to him.